Hello everyone, welcome back to this new video on this channel, Jóvenes Pregonando. My name is Anna, and today's video is titled Jacob Persevering in the Test and Holding On to His Promise, which is based in Genesis 28 verse 10 through Genesis 29 verse 30. We are going to be analyzing the life of this man who, despite of all the obstacles in his life, he perseveres looking forward and hoping to receive the promise that the Eternal had told him. But first, we're going to remember a little of what was analyzed in the previous chapters, where we learned about the lives of these two men. Jacob, who we see, knew the dimension of this promise, that it was more spiritual than rather material, so much that he clings to possess it until he takes it from his father Isaac. No, he did not cheat to take it, nor he steal it, to steal it. And he didn't steal nor cheat the birthright. He belonged for the birthright since his birth. He was very clear that it was the reason for his life, because that promise would bring blessing not only for the people of Israel but also for the nations. And on the other hand, Esau, who despises the birthright and simply had an insignificant thing done to him, but when he realizes that he lost his chance to possess it, even though he cries, we can see that he cannot acquire it. And here we have two paths and examples to follow, and it is up to each one of us to choose if we're going to take Esau's path, which is profanation and immorality, which will ultimately lead us to the path of death, or Jacob's path, which is to care and keep our lives in holiness and consecration before Elohim, so that through Messiah or through the Mashiach we reach the heavenly abodes. Understanding now how Jacob has already taken his father's blessing, and that his brother Esau was angry when he found out about this, Jacob has to flee for his life. Let's begin reading Genesis 28 verse 10 that says, Now Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. By orders of Rivkah, his mother, Jacob was heading to Beersheba. He was heading from Beersheba to Padam Aram. This was a long road of approximately 690 kilometers. Padam Aram was the place where, after the flood, the first civilizations were formed from the sons of Noah, who were Shem, Gam, and Japhet. Continuing with verses 11 through 13, it says, So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night, because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones from that place and put it at his head, and he laid down in that place to sleep. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached the heaven. And there the angels of Elohim were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Eternal stood above it and said, I am the Elohim of Abraham, your father, and the Elohim of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give it to you and your descendants. In these verses, we see that Jacob saw a ladder, and that the angels of the Eternal climbed it up to the heavens. This story does not say that they went down from the ladder, but that they only went up. We can see that the Eternal appears to him in that high place and tells him that he is the mighty one of his father Isaac and his grandfather Abraham, and confirms the promise of that land, and that he was going to give it to Jacob as a possession. This relationship is very important since it teaches us about the Messiah and his future. Once he is anointed and begins his ministry, he presents himself as sent from the Eternal, and that he did not come on his own. The ladder that Jacob was seeing was a vision about the Messiah, since Mashiach is the way, truth, and life, because he is the way to the Father. So now we can assimilate it as that path that leads us directly to the Father. Jacob is always remembered as a man who lived in tents. His characteristic is a man tamim, upright, mature, and perfect. That is why, because of his quantities, that the Eternal shows him the mystery of Yeshua. Let's see what Yeshua speaks in John 1 verses 43 through 51 that says, "The next day, Yeshua decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, 'Come, follow me.' Philip was from Bethsaida, Andrew's and Peter's hometown. Philip went to look for Nathanael and told him, 'We have found the very person Moses and the prophets wrote about. His name is Yeshua, the son of Joseph from Nazareth.'" And this verse 25, when Philip tells Nathanael that we have found the very person Moses and the prophets wrote about, he is referring to the verse we find in Deuteronomy 18:18 that says, "I will raise up from them a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my words in his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him." Continuing with verses 46 and 47 of John 1 that says, "Nazareth," exclaimed Nathanael. "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" "Come and see yourself," Philip replied. As they approached, Yeshua said, "Now here is a genuine son of Israel, a man of complete integrity." In this verse 47, the Christian theology always has Jacob as a supplanter. Here, the Messiah himself compares Nathanael with Jacob and puts both on the same level, as Israelites in whom there is complete integrity. Verses 48 through 51, it says, "How do you know about me?" Nathanael asked. Yeshua replied, "I could see you under the fig tree before Philip found you." Then Nathanael exclaimed, "Rabbi, you are the son of Elohim, the King of Israel." Yeshua asked him, "Do you believe this just because I told you I had seen you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than this." Then he said, I tell you the truth. You will all see heaven open and the angels of Elohim going up and down on the Son of Man, the one who is the stairway between heaven and earth. The word does not tell us, or the scriptures don't tell us, what Nathaniel was specifically meditating on, but from Yeshua's response, it is believed that Nathaniel was under the fig tree meditating on Jacob's ladder, and that he was looking for the mystery of the ladder, and practically the Messiah told him, "I am the ladder." So in this dream of Jacob, the Eternal shows him, number one, that the land where he was at, that was the land. And number two, that the heavens were opened there so that at last man could have access to the Father through the ladder, which is Yeshua. Verse 14 of chapter 28 of Genesis, it says, "Also your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east, to the north and the south, and in you and in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed." He repeats the characteristic that his descendants were going to expand, and this is fulfilled when the people of Israel are going to enter Canaan, when Moshe tells them in Deuteronomy 1 verse 10 that says, "The Eternal your Elohim has increased your population, making you as numerous as the stars." Verse 15 says, "Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you." What the Eternal tells him in this verse is as if the Eternal did not care what he had just done to Esau. And for this, we know that the Eternal tests Jacob, and he does not, we can see that the Eternal does not put a condition on Jacob in order to take care of him. But we read that he was going to keep him unconditionally until he had done with Jacob of what he had told him. The Eternal prospers Jacob in such a way that it makes him unremarkable in his offspring. And not only that, in Revelation 21 verse 10 through 12, we see how the Almighty, even after the final judgment, when the heavenly Jerusalem descends, it is written on it the 12 names of the tribes of Israel. So here we see how the Eternal has the people of Israel until the last times of humanity. Verse 16 says, "Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, 'Surely the Eternal is in this place, and I did not know it.'" Here we see how Jacob until now hardly realizes that the Eternal is not far from him. Verse 17 says, "He was afraid and said, 'How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of Elohim. This is the gate of heaven.'" How impressive! This place is Bethel, the house of Elohim. When Jacob sees that everything that he has gone through and everything that he had dreamed about, he realizes what the Eternal is going to do with man, since he is going to descend through Mashiach and the divine presence. He is going to live with man, that is to say, that the Messiah came to show us the heavenly to this reality. It is something very great and beautiful. But now we should be afraid to take care of our lives if we, who are the temple of the living Elohim, walk as he is worthy, taking care to fulfill his commandments. On the contrary, if we grieve the Ruach with transgressions, he will complain about us and will no longer give us the opportunity to enjoy the revelation of his word. Verses 18 through 22, it says, Early in the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Light. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, If the Eternal will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking and will give me this journey I am taking and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household. Then the Eternal will be my Elohim, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be the Eternal's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. We see here that Jacob lifts up the stone and anoints it. This is a stone who is the Messiah. It seems that Jacob finally sees and realizes the Eternal as his powerful. He was obedient to his mother Rivkah, but without discernment. And now in these verses we see that he makes a vow with the Eternal, and later we will see how he fulfills it. Continuing with chapter 29, verses 1 through 7 says, Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. Then he saw a well in the open country, with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth, and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, My brothers, where are you from? We're from Haran, they replied. He said to them, Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson? Yes, we know him, they answered. Then Jacob asked, Is he well? Yes, he is, they said. And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep. Look, he said, the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture. Here the Midrash says that the sheep keepers, these shepherds, were lazy, and this is why Jacob calls on them to tell them to get back to work. And Jacob knew about this work because he himself was a shepherd. Continuing with the next verses 8 and 9, it says, We can't, they replied, until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep. While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, and she was a shepherd. From this verse, the religions are taken to delegate the office of um, shepherdess, or for women being able to be pastors. But this topic is taken out of context, since if we read the reason why Rachel was a shepherd or was the pastor of the flock or the keeper of the flock, it was because she was the daughter of Laban, and because Laban didn't have children, male children, this is why Rachel had to take care of the herd. Continuing with verses 10 through 12, it says, When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and gathered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, or Ribkah. So she ran and told her father. This scene is very important because the tradition tells that in the house of Laban, Rachel and Leah, his daughters, waited for Jacob and Esau, children of Ribkah, to arrive one day to marry them. That is why when Rachel finds out that it is Jacob, son of Ribkah, we see that she is very happy to see him, and we can see that Rachel runs to his father's house, and practically like trying to say that the time has come, and as a sign of this, we see that Jacob kisses her. Now, also in the matter of the rock, we had previously read that the shepherds were waiting for everyone to come to move the rock from the well. But we can see here that Jacob himself moves it. The Midrash says that it is a revelation that neither Jacob nor his descendants would be denied water. Verses 13 through 17, it says, As soon as Laban heard the news from Jacob about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all the things. Then Laban said to him, You are my own flesh and blood. After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Leah right here we can say that Leah had delicate, tender eyes, or that she cried a lot. And the Jewish tradition says that her eyes were like that since she cried a lot, because Esau had already profaned himself and had joined Canaanite women. We can see that he married Canaanite women, and she was very sad because he would never come for her and marry her. The fact is that she would have some conflict this is why we can read that her look was sad, or her eyes were delicate. Jacob, let's continue reading verses 18 through 20 that says, Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it's better that I give to you, it's better that I give her to you than to some other men. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. We can see that when Jacob arrives with Laban, he does not take anything with him. He does not offer anything. And that is why here we see the payment of the dowry, or the payment in order for Jacob to receive Rachel, was that he had to work 7 years for her. And 7 years means a perfect job. And we will see soon that this situation is very interesting. Continuing with verses 21 through 23, it says, Then Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, my time is completed, and I want to take her. So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and Jacob took her. Rabbinical commentaries assume that he was very happy, that the wine caused him happiness, and this is why he did not know that, or he did not realize that they changed the woman. Some people wonder, why is it that Leah allowed this? And the Christian theologians say that the reason why they did this to Jacob was because he was a cheat. But within all of this, we see that the Eternal allows this to happen for a greater reason, which we will read later on. Verses 24 through 27 says, And Laban gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Leah, What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? Laban replied, It is not our custom here to give the youngest daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work. Here we see Laban's confidence and how he was doing well. He saw of how well he was doing with Jacob, because through his daughter we can see that he retains him another 7 years of work. And apparently Laban does not care about having cheated Jacob, and we can see that neither does he care about that, but he also, it seems like that he doesn't care about his daughters. The only thing that we can see here that he cares about is the matters in his personal interest and ambition. Verses 28 through 30 says, And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her attendant. Jacob took Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah, and he worked for Laban another 7 years. In the end, Laban gave him the 2 daughters, and these 2 women represent a shadow of what the Messiah came to do, since the 2 women represent the 2 houses of Israel, and Jacob represents the Messiah. The Messiah, as Jacob, redeems these 2 houses through a good work of 2 weeks. That is 2 times perfect. And the slaves, Silpa and Bilhah, represent the nations, which the Messiah also redeems for salvation. So in the end, we can see that Jacob not only received the 2 daughters, but also received these 2 attendants of these 2 women. And well, this is all for today's video. Thank you very much for your time on watching this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to share. If you have any comments or any questions, you can leave them in the comment section down below. And well, once again, thank you very much, and shalom.